Welcome, brothers and sisters, again here to the broadcast of IVI, Intelligent Voices Israelites. Today we have a very, very amazing study. So we're glad for everyone who catch the stream and therefore tune in with us. For we will be talking about Yahweh and how far the name goes back, and basically understanding that this was the name that was found and was in the scrolls when those settlers came and found and took over. So we wanted to make clarity with logic today on top of precept to allow brothers and sisters to understand that here it is, Yahweh is the name that can be used and will and shall be used. Because here it is, we will break it down to understanding that many brothers and sisters have went wrong with the name of Yahweh. So when it is basically said, many people have referred the name to basically to be pagan. But as we will illustrate today here at IVI, I am your brother Yisrael Yeshambaya, who will therefore enlighten you by the obedience of this body to allow our Father to do the teaching and for you to be the receiver. So before we go into this, let everyone have a moment to get everything you need. Turn your phones down so you cannot be irritated or bugged, because the devil loves to use the phone to try to therefore make sure one's mind is not completely 360. So your brother here is about to go into this prayer, and I hope everyone is therefore ready to also say your prayer that you like to say to my Father and your Father. But I like to read mine as I read it for those who do not like to say or haven't been in the practice long enough. I will say the prayer for you out loud. Almighty Father, Yahuwah, my Father, I come to you again before you with my whole heart to ask for the forgiveness and for mercy and for redemption, and for those to be granted the salvation, heaven of your love. May your compassion continue to fill their hearts. Give them the deliverance of understanding. So therefore, there's no complications, Father Yahuwah. We thank you so much for transforming us into the awakening Israelites to be returned as your remnant, giving us full power and authority to know your love, your kindness, your patience, and understanding that you're installing endurance into us each day by the grace of Yahshua Yahweh. As we will be talking of him today, Father, may you take over the body and the spirit in Yeshua's name. Amen. Amen. So we'll be talking and discussing the natural sense of the name of the Almighty Supreme Being. That's right, brothers and sisters. The Almighty Supreme Being. And understanding the Son, Yahshua, Yahweh, as the supreme love. That's right. The supreme love, because it is going to give you the elevation now to understand your calling and why it's so important to you and I. Because here it is, brothers. Here it is, sisters. It gives you guidance and prep you for a kingdom that is to come. See? So here at IBI, on this stream, you'll be allowed to understand now Yahweh, YAHWEH, is the biblical name that was given to Moses. And it was also given to every Israelite person individually by being known unto them, right? So Yahweh is the name of the ancient kingdom, right, of Israel. And later, this is logic from my book, soon to be coming. The kingdom of Judah, and his name is composed of 4 Hebrew letters. Now, understand, brothers and sisters, you can Google this. You see a Y, H, W, and a H. That was biblically in the scrolls, okay? It was transliterated letters. That's right. Because here it is, eventually they were actually changed, or here it is, referred to be something else. Because here it is, we know the prophet Moses said and have also revealed to the people Yahweh's name, right? So now as the supreme being, and here it is, man has changed it from the Y, the H, the W, the N, and Yahweh, right? Because you don't hear that name to now. 10 years, 15 years ago, you didn't hear that name, and you still don't hear that name in the church. That's so-called, right? So understand and follow me, brothers and sisters. It was too pure to be spoken. Now, these are these settlers who came, and when they discovered the Y, the H, the W, and the H, and here it is, they changed it. But here it is, it was to remind, here it is, the Israelites of his name. And here it is, they said the WH were used to remind one to say the word Adonai or Adonai, Elohim, in place of the Most High's name. A common practice, brother, throughout the Near East. That's right. Because here it is, we know Islam came after the Bible. Think about it. Look at the dates, okay? And here it is, when you go deeper into your study, as you will, most of you will realize that most of that book have taken the psychology, and here it is, the theology, mostly, here it is, from multiple books besides just the Hebrew Bible. Now understand, throughout the Near East, in which the expression was used in referring, here it is, to Yahweh. So when they say Adonai or Elohim, they are trying to keep themselves from saying my father's name, Yahweh, okay? Yahweh, power is in the name, deliverance is the name, in the name, and salvation, everyone, is in the name. So you have to realize that here it is, will you be bamboozled or will you become now unconfused? Because now it will allow you to see common sense that Yahweh, which here it is, was missing the A in the E, because we just proved that it was the Y, the H, the W, in the H, right? So now we see the letters or vowels that are removed, right? But here it is, that also was added later on, because we understand that here it is, it wasn't no J in the Hebrew alphabet. So keep that in mind. However, it is clearly and exactly telling us when Yahweh, here it is, was first worshipped, by whom and how, because here it is, your brother Yisrael Yashambayah is about to explain all of that to you. So if you are patient, like you should be in the first fruits of the 9, the origin of Yahwism are not hidden in mystery. Because here it is, we know that many of the Israelites were only the ones of the Hebrew scrolls, right? And we know that they understood of Yahweh, okay? The supreme, the almighty, my father. That's right. So now when we go to, we have to look at Genesis, to go farther into the precept out from this logic, right? So let's go, here it is, to the Old Testament. And let's look at Genesis chapter 4. And we're going to be looking at everyone at verse 16. So please pay attention. And if you're just tuning in today, we're talking about Yahweh, the formal name, okay, that was in the scrolls before the time of those settlers, okay? So now, as we will now be here in Genesis, pay attention. Look at verse 16. Because here it is. This is going to give us the traces of the worship of Yahweh back to the earlier days of the human race, okay? While other passages, that's right, trace the worship of Yahweh back to Moses, right? But so here it is at IVI. We're going to trace it back, Yahweh, the name, all the way back to Genesis chapter 4, verse 16, starting here. So now when we look, we see Cain, here it is, left Yahweh or Yahweh's, or some of your books might say God. Cain left Yahweh's presence, and lived in the land of Nod, right? East. Then I just say in the logic, here it is, the Near East, or now Far East, right? So now here it is, he said, the land of Nod, east of Eden. And then check out verse 17. Cain knew his wife. She conceived and gave birth to Enoch, right? He built a city. Here we go. And named the city after the name of his son, right? Enoch, right? Now, let me give you a little bit of logic of what I'm talking about, everybody, because here it is. This is later formed coming out of Abraham later, who came out of ancient Babylon, right? So now here it is. We're just going to the first inhabitants, here it is, on the earth that was using the name. So now this is dating back, using the name Yahweh. Or here it is, like I say, when you remove the A and the E, you have the letters Yahweh, 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 right? So now when you pronounce it, it becomes now powerful, right? Because here is some logic. The first civilization which perished in judgment of the flood, right? Didn't they? Because here it is, was Canaanite in origin. They was Canaanite in origin. That's right. Enoch, Cain, Abel. All right. So now what we're pointing out here, they were Canaanite in origin, character, and here it is, destiny. Right? And here it is, every element of material was what? Civilization. Because now here it is, we just read here in 4:6. This is the first civilization, right? And here it is, it traces back to the worship of Yahweh. And here it is, before you hear the mention through Moses. It was with Cain them as well, first. So now, as you see, all through the Bible, brothers and sisters, specifically the Bible of Exodus, presents Yahweh as Elohim, here's logic, of the Israelites. There are many now, understand me, passages in the Bible, right, which make clear that this Elohim, which my father, was also worshipped by other peoples, that's right, in Canaan. We never talk about that, right? But we done heard of Joseph, but there's huge gaps, everybody, that no one has talked about of what time frame or what was going on before they came to Egypt. But now, as we have went all the way back to the beginning of human traces of human beings, we're now seeing my Father is explaining in the Bible that here it is, presence of Yahweh, his name, as Elohim of the Israelites, and also that many passages, which we know, makes it clear that this Elohim was also worshipped by other people in Canaan. The Edomites, must write these down, brothers and sisters. They who worship my Father were the Edomites, the Canaanites. That's right, the Kenites, the Kenites, the Moabites. That's right, the Moabites, and the Midianites all worship Yahweh to one degree or another, brothers and sisters. And that there is evidence that the Edomites, that's right, who operated the mines of Timnah or Timnah, converted an early Egyptian temple of Hathor to the worship of Yahweh. Now, you must do your own research because this is going to be in my book. Now, realize this is logic, everybody. And I'm lining this up with the precept, okay, from the Hebrew Bible, which was transliterated from the scrolls, okay, in its wording and lettering. Now, understand, although the Bible presents Yahweh as the Elohim of the Israelites, that's right, many passages, that's right, which make clear that this Yahweh was also worshipped by other people. Although the biblical narratives depict Yahweh as the sole creator Elohim, right? Most high of the universe and savior of the Israelites, especially. Now, didn't I just say that? The scrolls were with the Israelites, and here it is with no other people, but only the Israelites in the Israelite community. Initially, he seems to have been Canaanite in origin, right? Or subordinated, right, to the supreme Elohim. Canaanite inscriptions mention a lesser, here it is, Yahweh. And even the biblical book of Deuteronomy stipulates that the Most High, El, here it is, or Elohim, which was gave to the nations, here it is, or who gave to the nations their inheritance. Now we know Joshua after Moses, and that Yahweh portion is his people, right? Because here it is, the Father has given Yahweh the people, right? Anyone who believes in Yahweh have now been grafted in under the spirit of Yahweh, right? So now here it is, this is allowing you to see the transliterated letters, here it is, and understand that Yahweh is the name. The power is in the name. Deliverance is the name. Salvation is in the name of Yahweh, not the Father. And we're going to prove that, right? So just stick with me. Because Yahweh's portion, everybody, is his people, which is Jacob. Now we know Jacob became Israel, right? And he was allotted a heritage, right? And we're going to get to that heritage in Genesis. But we know the passage also reflects the early belief of the Canaanites and the Israelites. Here it is, by claim, that's right, that Israel always only acknowledged one Elohim. And here it is, as early days of Israel's development in Canaan. Now, many people don't talk about this, brothers and sisters. That here it is, Father was in Canaan, among the Canaanites, among them nations that I just had you write down. Okay. And here it is. They know his name was Yahweh. Okay. Yahweh. So now you know, and that's why the A and the E is removed, and they got the Y, the H, the W, and the H, because this was in the scrolls, Yahweh. So now here it is. If that was in the Near East or the Middle East today, or Far East, however you like to call it, in the land of Shem is referred back to Israelites, and here it is. We know Abraham came out of Babylon in the north, but here it is in the Near East. We're also seeing Yahweh was worshipped in Canaan. Now, when we go to Genesis, let's go to Genesis 32. And when you get to Genesis chapter 32, let's look at verses 8, everyone. Verses 8 and 9. And watch what we see. Clearly says, and he said, if Esau comes to one, here it is, company, and strikes it, then the company which is left will escape, right? Then it said, verse 9, Jacob said, Yahweh of my father, Abraham. See this? This is acknowledgement. And Yahweh of my father, Isaac. See that? Yahweh, who said to me, return to your country and to your relatives, and I will do you good. You see that? So understand, was all played. Remember, Joseph got sold later on. So now this is foreknowledge. And he said, if Esau comes to one company, that means to serve one most high, right? And strike it, then the company which is left will escape. That means the offsprings, right? Change comes by Yahweh's name now. Jacob became Israel, right? And now Jacob started the 12 tribes. But there was 10 lost tribes and only 9 came back, right? Because now we have 3 at the southern, which is the 144,000, and then we had a 1/3 of the 9 tribes, which is grafted back in to the 3, which makes now 12 tribes, as Judah being the head. See that? So understand now, Yahweh was who said to me, return to your country and your relatives, and I will what? Do good to you. So now we're understanding that is here in Genesis chapter 32. The meaning of the name Yahweh now, understand me, brothers and sisters, has been interpreted as he who makes that which has been made. That's what it means. He who makes that which has been made. So, or he brings into existence whatever exists. So here it is. This is going as deep back to those letters. And this is what the terminology, a language that was spoken. And here it is, the meaning by definition. He brings into existence whatever exists. Now, other interpretations have been offered by many other scholars. Now, understand, in the late middle of 1500s, Yahweh came to be changed. See, he became to be changed because now transliterated, here it is, into Jehovah with J. So it's became Jehovah by the Christian monk, right? And here there's a wrong name commonly in use today, Jehovah or Hova, right? You might see many other artists using that, but here it is. They are purposely not saying the real name Yahweh, because here it is, they are basically choosing to serve the world and the demon or the dragon who have cultivated to change the name to Jehovah. And here it is, today is used in many other sectors of Jesus Jehovah and many other different names, referring supposedly to my Father Yahweh. Now, the character and power of Yahweh were codified. Understand that. Following the Babylonian captivity in the 6th century BCE, right? And the Hebrew scriptures were colonized during the Second Temple period, right? And to include the concept of a Messiah whom Yahweh would send to the Hebrew people to lead and redeem them. Yahweh as the all-powerful creator, right? Preserver and redeemer of the universe. Now, this is why they went away from using the name, because they started practicing voodoo, witchcraft, and many other things that were part of deception. And Jehovah came in later on down the road, so as we know. But now here it is, they was running away from understanding that the Redeemer of the universe was then later developed a deity to be now Jesus, as I was saying. When the J came as Jehovah, they also created many other sects of names. So here it is, and they created Jesus. And here it is, once the J came a part of the English alphabet. So with that, as we continue, by the early Christians as their God, Jesus became their God. So here it is. This is how they slipped away from serving Yahweh. You see that? And here it is. The church was set up mostly in the South, and then it became an explosion all over the world, right? And now we know, here it is, they call on Jesus as their God, which is basically running away from the truth and running away to say the real name. Why? Because they can't utter the real name because it's too righteous for their spirit to hold on or handle. So what they got to do, they have to change it to something that, here it is, can make you tricked or deceived on that they believe in the same Father that you believe in, honestly. But here it is, they don't. So now, here it is, these serving in Jesus, who has sent his son Jesus as a promised Messiah, and Islam interpret this same deity. Now, understand what I said earlier. Islam took from all books, and they created Allah in their belief system. So they changed the name from YH, here it is, WH, to a name put in there. And what do the Father say in Revelations 20? Anyone who adds to this book shall be added unto. And anyone who subtracts from this book should be subtract to, right? So now here those, they created Allah. Now understand extra biblical mentions of Yahweh. The oldest mention of Yahweh was long held to be the Moabite stone. Now research the Moabite stone, everybody, because that will show you how proof of my Father's name, Yahweh, is the real name. Not all these other names everybody are saying. So Yahweh is the name biblically, scrolls, as it has been since the beginning. Since here it is, or since century. So now we know the oldness mentioned, or the oldest mention, was on the Moabite stone, as I have put in my logic notes, as known as the Misha Stele, erected by King Misha of Moab, right, to celebrate his victory over Israel in 840 BCE. The inscriptions, write this down, everyone, mentions how Misha, here it is, after defeating the Israelites, took the vessels of Yahweh to Chemosh, okay, to Chemosh, the chief god of Moab, meeting the object sacred to the worship of Yahweh in the temple, right? Most likely the temple in Israel's capital of Samaria. Now understand the Moabite stone was discovered 1868 in modern day Jordan, everybody. Okay, so when you Google this information, this will actually give you more study and side notes to prove that Yahweh is the name. And here it is. It was the name being used also in the first beginning of the traces back to the human race of Cain. All right, and Enoch. So now understand that here it is found and published. It also was published in 1870. First extra biblical inscription found to mention Yahweh. So this is around 1870 on the Moabite stone. Much was made of the discovery of the still reported the same event from the biblical narrative of, here it is, 2 Kings. We must visit here. 2 Kings, okay, chapter 3, verse 11 through 14. Everybody. 2 Kings, chapter 3, 11 through 14. Now, understand, as I continue lacing you with the logic, and we know which Mishe, the Moabite rebels, or here it is, had rebelled against Israel. Now, understand when we read this in 2 Kings, it is chapter 3, verse 11 through 14. But Yosaphat, now you even got a Y, you might see a Y on Noah's son, Yosaphat. But it's here it is. Isn't there a prophet of Yahweh here? You see that? It says God, but here it is, oh Lord. Here it is, but here it is. That will bring something low. So in order to have something high, you would say the right name of the Most High. And at this time, Yosaphat, here it is, said, isn't there a prophet? So it's setting these people apart of Yahweh here, that we may inquire of Yahweh by him, right? One of the kings of Israel, servants answered, Elisha, here it is, the son of Shaphat, who poured water on the hands of Elijah, is here. Now, as we see here, keep going, verse 12. Yosaphat said, Yahweh's word is with him, right? Yahweh's word is with him. And he said this. What? He says, Yahweh's word is with him. So the king of Israel and Yosaphat and the king of Edom, right, went down to him, right? The king of Edom, the Edomites. He saw them, right? Yosaphat. Elisha said to the king of Israel, what have I to do with you? Go to the prophets of your ancestors and to the prophets of your mothers. The king of Israel said to him, no, for Yahweh. You see this? That's what's supposed to be there, brothers and sisters. No, for Yahweh has called these three kings together to deliver them into the hands of the Moabites. Didn't I just tell you all the nations where my father was dealing with? He was dealing in the east of the Moabites, right? So now here it is. Elisha said, as Yahweh lives, before whom I stand, right? Surely, here it is, where it not that I respect the presence now of Yosaphat, the king of Judah, I will not look towards you nor see you. You see this? So now here it is. People are saying that the name of my father is important. How true the name is. And there's no disputing this, because here it is. This is proof. And if you ever go get a good downloaded amplified book with Yahweh in it, his name, it will actually help you clear up the Lord, the God, and the Jesus out of your mind and frame of heart. Because here it is as I continue in verse 18. He says it now in verse, what did I stop? I was supposed to only go to verse 14, okay, which I did. So here it is. I will not look towards you nor see you, right? Because I respect the presence of Yosaphat, the king of Judah. See that? Because now here it is wise to always seek Yahweh. Yosaphat said, we must go see, is there someone here that is of Yahweh? Because he's seeing nothing but the men of like himself. If we're going to have anything good come out of this, we're going to need or seek Yahweh. So now that is clear, brothers and sisters, as we see that here, right? That is no denying the truth. Yahweh go back as far as showing you the Moabites, and then also allowing you to see through the major differences of the claiming, right? Let me move my book out the way. Of the claiming. Now, a Moabite victory in the Bible claiming Israel the winner, right? The Yahweh line was interpreted, right? Was to further support the concept of Yahweh as the Elohim of the Israelites alone, since Mishe claims that he have taken the Israelite gods, here it is, or here it is, Yahweh's vessels as a tribute to his own, right? Now in 1844, the ruins of the ancient city of Salib in Nubia were excavated by, here it is, archaeologists named Carl Richards. Now, this is logic, everybody. This is the notes you need to be taken down, because this is going to help you not have to go through your research alone, which now you will take this down, and then now you can go straight forward to the research. Now, this archaeologist was named Carl Richards, Lepsius, Lepsius, if I pronounced his last name. I hope to assassinate it too bad. Who documented the site in detail, right? But catch this, he documented. That means he's taking notes. Just like I just asked all of you, take these notes, because what's going to get to the details is going to find out that this Carl Richards did not excavate. Now, this is in 1844. Okay? So keep that in mind. Now, in 1907, James Henry, that's right, here it is, breasted, or here it is, arrived. His last name is Breasted. So his name is Henry Breasted. And he arrived, James Henry Breasted arrived and photographed the site. Now we got one that came, an archaeologist, and he did no excavation. Then we got a James Henry Breasted who arrived to photograph the site. Now write this down, excavated and photographed, and write the names of these people. But again, here we go, brothers and sisters. Engaged in no excavations. Okay. Now we in 1907. It was not until 1957, that's right, that a team under the archaeologist Michele Scheffner Giovanni. Now we all know him. He became very, very famous, right, for excavating some of the most, here it is, amazing pyramids that therefore have now been excavated properly, and here it is, have been taken out into Cairo's most extravagant museums. And here it is, we have some of the most replicas over here in the United States. But at the same time, when you visit these places of Cairo and museums, you will actually know Schaefer Giovanni is the one who therefore excavated the site. And here there's found reference to the group of people who lived there around the site, and described them as, here it is, Sheshu. Sheshu. They was the Sheshu of Yahweh people. Now, this was around the Moabites. They were calling themselves Sheshu, and here it is, people, a nation of Yahweh. Say Yahweh, right? As the base of one of the columns, as he had excavated, of the temples in the hyperstyle in one of the halls. The temple was built in the new reference, here it is, to Yahweh, or Yahweh, was established. That's right. As the only most high. That's right. You can't make this up, brothers and sisters. This is the truth. What you're hearing, IVI, Intelligent Voices Israelites, by your brother Yisrael Yah. So now as we see, Yahweh was established here in this land of Canaan, right? Around the Moabites, right? In the Near East, right? As the only most high. So how did Allah pop up? How did Jehovah pop up? How did Buddha and Shiva and all them pop up, right? How did all of these voodoo priests and witchcraft pop up? Because, here it is, they denied the name of Yahweh. The power is in the name, right? I said the power is in the name. The salvation is in the name. The deliverance is in the name. Not Jesus, not Lord, not God, but Yahweh, right? YAHUAH, Yahweh. So now we see here, this was the findings of Schaefer Giovanni. Yahweh was established as the only most high, who was worshipped by the Israelite people long, now understand this, long before the time of when the events of the biblical covenants, right, of Moses. Now understand this. Now, way before Moses, just going back to Enoch's, right? The Sheshu people was also given as Sheshu, were a Semitic and a Normandic people, described as outlaws or bandits by the, here it is, the Egyptians. Now realize, this is the Edomites, who was basically causing havoc to Egyptians. That's right. You're hearing this to understand Yahweh is the real name to be saying when you pray. Because this is referring to the Son who gave his salvation for those who call on his name. Deliverance is in the name, brother. Salvation is in the name, sister. Okay? And realize that you have been bamboozled by mistheologies that have been indoctrinated to you to get you out of knowing the true name of the Most High. To realize that here it is, you are denying yourself of the service of salvation when you use other names. Now we're dating back to the Shashu or Sheshu, S-H-A-S-U. So now we're understanding, here it is, was a Normandic people described as outlaws and bandits by the Egyptians. And in fact, they are named on the columns of the temple of Salih. Here it is, among the Egyptians, other enemies. Now, when Giovanni Schaefer discovered many things inside of the temples of the Egyptians, they had the enemies on the wall in the color of these enemies, right? So here it is. This is allowing you to see that the Edomites at a time were called Sheshu, and they were the Edomites, Moabs, Canaanites, all together in one, here it is, community in Canaan. And here it is, their enemies appeared in inscriptions from the reign of Ramses II. Remember Ramses? Ramsey II between, here it is, 1213 BCE to 1279. Okay? As among the Pharaoh's enemies at the Battle of Kadesh. Now realize, brother and sister, you have to research to realize, to know that this is the truth. Yahuwah is giving you the truth today about his name. So that way you do not get it misconstrued, that thinking you can say any other name that is to give you salvation. You can know or refer to a name, but here it is. His real name that he wants you to refer must be used. So now, as he has established, they were a confused people, all of those nations, linking them to the Judahites of the Hebrews and the Israelites, who later came offsprings later. They were Canaanites who simply refused to conform to the customs of the land. Because here it is, they were living reckless, wild. And here it is, they were basically taking, robbing. They were breaking covenant. Because in the laws, Yah did not want you to take or rob or steal. So here it is, people, here it is, understand this now, that Yahweh is pointing out how far his name goes back. Now, don't stay in incognito. Come on out. And here it is, participate. Because here it is, this is going to allow you to receive something without stagnation. But understand, to discover or have the discovery of Yahweh Elohim, the Most High, was much earlier in history than that had been accepted previously. Right? It also suggests that Yahweh was perhaps not native to Canaan. This fit that Yahweh was and is the Almighty Yahuwah, whom the Hebrews adopted in their exodus from Egypt to Canaan. See that? Yahuwah was Yahweh before. Okay? So Yahweh, Yahuwah is basically the two names. And now became the name above all names, right? And now you see that here it is, the name changed as when they were leaving Egypt, as I just broke down with logic to see the understanding of that. Because here it is, it's like you got to teach this out clear. And here it is, Yah is saying, I'm making clear to you, follow me. Because here it is, it's going to line up to the precept as we get to the word of the Hebrew Bible. But you must have his logic for each word. So now, as we see, Yahweh was a almighty Yahuwah, whom the Hebrews adopted in their exodus, right? From Egypt to Canaan, the description of Yahweh appearing as a pillar of bright light. They got fire in some of your books. But here it is, a bright light by night. And here it is, a cloud of bright smoke by day, as well as the other imagery from the book of Exodus, as we know, were interpreted by some scholars as suggesting, everybody, here it is, he was a storm god or a weather deity. See, this is why they removed the Y, the H, and WH, because they didn't want you to say, well, or ask your pastors or your bishops or evangelists, why is these why is these transliterated letters here? So what they did, what we explained earlier, they removed them. So that way they put in there what they wanted to worship or will make up later, which we just explained. So now these deities, now since Yahweh is able to direct Moses to water sources, this is probably why they came up with the theory in the first place, everyone. Because here it is, no one wants to give the full power or the worship to my Father Yahweh. But here it is, he's allowing you to see why the church folks who say they are Christians, the Catholic folks who say they are Catholics, and here it is, all other denominations who are basically set on hell, because here it is, they are not set upon the light. because they're denying the power of the name. So that is the first telltale sign. When we go to Genesis, let's go to Genesis. No, let's go to Exodus, chapter 17, verse 6. Watch this. In the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel away. You see that? Took Samaria and carried Israel away. So they took captive Samaria women and took Israel away. All of the, here it is, Edomites. Here it is, and also Judites. So here it is, he says, carry Israel away to Assyria and place them in Halah and on the harbor, the river of Goshen, and the cities of Medes. Now, when you look at Medes, today, Medes is Iran. Okay, they are the Iranians. So when you see that word Medes, M-E-D-E-S, we are talking about Iranians. So now here it is, we're talking about a people without melon, right? Which before, these people had melon. But here it is, they were actually part of Esau, the Edomites, Kenites, as the ones we mentioned earlier. Now, when you see this here in 17 verse 6, it will also allow you to go to Numbers and read all of that at your free time. Chapter 20. It is generally accepted in the modern day, however, that Yahweh originated in southern Canaan, right? As a discovered Elohim or Adonai in the Canaanite timeline, being most likely, right, acquired. Here it is, most likely acquired their worship, here it is, of him during their time in the desert. Now understand the Moabite stone, as I had mentioned earlier, brothers and sisters, when you Google that, and when you find out and see that on that stone in Hebrew, it mentions Yahweh. Okay, Yahweh. So now here it is when it becomes now fluent, Yahweh. But they say Yahweh because the A was silent, the E was silent. Okay, it was fluent. Eber is Hebrew. Now understand that here it is that the Elohim in the Canaanite time, he was acquired of their worship of him during their time in the desert. The Moabite stone has also been reinterpreted in light of recent scholarship, right? Which demonstrates that the people of Moab also worship Yahweh in the reference to Meshach. Here it is, taking the vessels of Yahweh to Chemosh, most likely means he repossessed what he felt belonged to the Moabites. Not that he conquered Israel or its Elohim in the name, here it is, of his own, which was Yahweh in the Bible. So now you understand. This is why he took the vegetables, thinking that he can conquer Yahweh by stealing all the vegetables and bringing it back to Moab. Okay? But we find out later on what happened. David ended up getting it back, and then David got rid of it, which is the Ark of the Covenant. But now, as we're speaking today about the topic of Yahweh, we're basically figuring out and knowing and telling you here at IVI broadcast, Intelligent Voices, Israelites, that here it is today, you're finding out that Yahweh is the true name that has the power. Here it is, the deliverance, and here it is, the salvation that frees you and gives to you in prayer by your acting in the right name. But understand, the Bible does mention other nations, right, that worshiping or were worshiping my Father Yahweh. and how the Yah arrived from Edom to help the Israelites in warfare. Because here it is, we must dig up all of this information and resurface it, everyone, so everyone can quit believing everybody are with all of these different names and getting confused of which one to truly use. Here, your brother Yisrael Yashambayah, you can hold me accountable. I am telling you, my father, as he had instructed, you are to call him Yahweh. Okay? YAHUAH, Yahweh. Because here it is, the power is in the name. Those two names are the names above all names. So realize now here, go in Deuteronomy chapter 33. Deuteronomy chapter 33, everybody. Watch what happens here. So verse 2, 33, verse 2. I'm in my book. He said, Yahweh came from Sinai and rose from Seir to them. You see that? He shined from Mount Patran. He came from 10,000. He came with 10,000 of the set apart ones. They got holy ones. At his right hand was a righteous law for them. You see this? So not only is it telling you and showing you that Yahweh personally came down to speak here to Israel, but also came with 10,000 of the host of angels, okay, for proof. What they're seeing and hearing is real, okay? And understanding that here it is, in this verse, it is telling you, he said, Yahweh came from Sinai. Now this is Moses. And rose from Seir to them. He shined, here it is, from Mount Patran, and that'd be Iran. He came from the 10,000. He came with 10,000, Salah, of 10,000 of his set apart ones. At his right hand was the righteous law for them. Now let's go to Judges chapter 5. Judges chapter 5, verses 4 through 5. Watch what it says here, brothers and sisters. It clearly says, Yahweh, when you went out of Seir, when you marched out of the field of Edom, now that's Esau territory, right? The earth trembled, the sky also dropped. Yes, the clouds dropped water, that means rain. Verse 5, the mountains quaked. Here it is, thundering and rumbling. Yahweh's presence, even Sinai, at the presence of Yahweh. Now it's being broke down even more clear, just like Matthew's to Mark, right? So the mountain quaked, Yahweh's presence. See that? Even Sinai at the presence of Yahweh. Here it is, Yahweh or Yahuwah of Israel. So this is clearly saying God is not there, because Yahweh, we just prove, is the supreme being above all. He's not a God. He's above all gods, right? He's the supreme being. Get that in your skull, brother. Get that in your head, sister. But this is not, here it is, the central narrative in the Bible. Yahweh is the one true Yah, who created the heavens and the earth, brothers and sisters, and then chose a certain blessed people. That's right, which was tied to the traces lineage, what we just showed as the Hebrew Israelites. Here it is, as his own. And this is what's going on now. The returning of the 144,000 of Judah, of the southern kingdom, 3 tribes, and then the 9 of the 1/3 of the mixed tribe. So now we're seeing why we're talking about the name Yahweh. Because here it is, people are being bamboozled out of saying the real Yahweh. So here it is, we must enforce the name, because my father says spiritually, as I bear witness to this teaching, he said, my name is Yahweh. So now we're seeing truly that here it is, man has removed the Y, the H, the W, and the H, so curiosity wouldn't build up, right? Because here it is, it refers to Yahweh. Now, we know he chose a certain blessed people, a Hebrew Israelites, as his own. Yahweh created the world, and here it is, hung the sun and the moon in our midst. The book of Genesis, as it opens, tells us he creates animals and humans, right? And he destroys all in the great flood, except Noah and Noah's family, right? And we also know that the animals Noah saves and the elects, here it is, of Abram, because Abram came later, right? Later known as Abraham, to lead his people, right, the Israelites, to the land of where? Canaan. He led them to the what? Land of Canaan. So now we understand why Joseph was in Egypt, and therefore his brothers sold him, and therefore they had to go to Egypt, and later brought their dad and all of their family, right? Remember that story, y'all? So now when we look here, they settled in where? Let's go look. In Genesis. In Genesis. So when we get to Genesis chapter 1, Bible start out. Chapter 1, we read, oh, I need that. So now when you get here, you see here in Genesis chapter 1, YAHUAH made the expanse, as we see that he made humankind first. And you can read that 1 through what? Chapter 1 through, it goes all the way to 25, 1 through 25, or some say 1 through 26 in some books. All right. So now we know the book of Genesis conclude with Joseph, here it is, dying later on, as we know, after telling his brothers that Yahweh would bring them out of Egypt, right? And back to the land promised to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Esau. So now we are seeing the backstory. You're finding out why this name Yahweh is so important, brothers and sisters. Many years later, here go logic, when the Israelites have grown too populous for the Egyptians, as we knew the story, a pharaoh of Ramses, remember Ramses II, ordered them to be enslaved and to make their lives harsh. And we also see that in Exodus, right? In Exodus chapter 1, which is 1 through 15. And then we also know that this Pharaoh ordered all of the male children assassinated, killed on sight, right? And we know that therefore Moses, here it is, was a Levite, and so was his brother. Now, when we get here to Genesis chapter 1, and we are looking back up here at 15, look at verse 15. It clearly says in chapter 1, and let them be for light in the expanse of the sky to give light on the earth. And it was so, right? Then as we continue, go scroll down to 18. And then he says in verse 18, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. Yah saw that it was good. So now we're clearly understanding that anyone who keeps Yahweh's name is basically in the light and not in the dark, right? So here it is. This is why we're going here to see why the name is so important and why many are trying to distort people from that truth to say different names. We're here to clearly tell you, and we will be held accountable if we're lying, but we are not. We're telling you Yahweh is where the deliverance is and where is the salvation and the power, because we're pointed out that it dates all the way back before Moses. So now here it is. The first encounter in the introduction was to Moses, them. Here it is, Yahweh. To Abraham, Yahweh. So now understand that here it is, even to Isaac was Yahweh. Now even to Ishmael was Yahweh. So now we knowing that Yahweh is the name. And here it is. We are seeing this clearly. Go to verse 22 in the same chapter of Genesis 1. YAHUAH blessed them, saying, be fruitful. There you go. Multiply, fill the waters in the sea, and let birds multiply on the earth, right? So now a woman of the Levi tribe among the Israelites now hid her son, who was going to be light inside of a dark kingdom, right? Who name will be Moses. And here it is. Among the Israelites hid her son and then sends him downstream in a basket net to be found by Pharaoh's daughter. We know the story. Who adopts him. This child is Moses, as we see here in Exodus. Go to Exodus chapter 2, 1 through 10. Let's read that down here in the book. So clarity. A man of the house of Levi went and took a daughter of Levi as his wife. The woman conceived and bore a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, here it is, that means a well Israelite child, she hid him 3 months, right? Watch this, everybody. I'm in my book. When she could no longer hide him, she took a basket net for him and coated it with tar and with mud. She put the child in and laid him in the reed of this basket by the riverbank. His sister stood far off. Now, this is Moses' sister. His sister stood far off to see what would be done to him, right? Watching the mother. Verse 5, this is something you never heard, right? The whole story of the coming into Yahweh's name. Pharaoh in verse 5, daughter came down to bathe at the river. Her maidens walked along by the riverside. She saw the what? Basket among the reeds and sent her servant to get it. Verse 6, she opened it and saw the child, and here it is, was beheld or amazed and shocked. The baby cried. She had what? Compassion. See that? Love in her heart on him for seeing Moses. Now, this is just the servant. And he said, this is one of the Hebrew children. So he said, she had compassion on him and said, this is one of the Hebrews, Israelites' children. Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, should I go and call a nurse for you from the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for you? Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go. The young woman went, called the child's mother. See, they know who Moses was, who was this baby tied to. So here it is. This was a spiritual divine thing happening here, everyone. Yahweh is in the making of details. So now as we see, found the child's mother, verse 9, Pharaoh's daughter said to her, see, after they found the mother, Moses' mother, she said, take this child away. Nurse him for me. See that? Because she's saying you throwing him away, but I'm going to take him because this is a beautiful baby. And here it is. No child like this should be dead, right? So here it is. Pharaoh's daughter is telling Moses' mother, I will give you your wages, she says in verse 9. The woman took the child and nursed baby Moses. The child grew over time, and she brought him to Pharaoh, here it is, daughter. And he became the son, here it is, she never had. She named him what? Moses. And said, because I drew him out of water. So now let's rest on that, brothers and sisters, before we continue. She said, I drew him out of water. Water. Water is symbolical for clarity, for purification. So now this is Pharaoh's daughter, not Moses' mother. Okay? So now you got two women that don't live in the same house, but one identified, even though she didn't live in the same house, Moses came out of the womb of it. See that? But told the mother, I will call him Moses, and it's because it has definition and character of clarity and purity. Wow. Why y'all didn't see that? Many movies have been made, right? But seeing that Yahweh, power is in the name, it made baby Moses travel. Here it is, transliterated in character to become Moses. Because we got a question, if this would have never went down, what would have been his name from his mother? Right? That's the question. What would have been his name? And this is only something my Father can tell you once you reach the kingdom that is already prepared for us. So I'm just here to allow you to see how many things that is being asked on a daily basis that must, some things not be told right away, but only to give you the truth to lead you to the explanation later. That's right. To know IVI is here for a reason, Intelligent Voice of Israelites. Your brother Yisrael Yashambayah, my wife who created this channel for you guys for broadcasting these videos for. So send out much blessing to her. And here it is. Understand, we are talking about Yahweh, the real name, which is YAHUAH Yahweh. Okay? The only two names that are one. So now when we see this, brothers and sisters, as we now see in verse 10, she named him Moses, right? And said to the mother, it's because I drew him out of water. She saw the destination of Moses because she understood her own kingdom. Okay, this Nubianite who was Egyptian. Okay, so now you are understanding our backstory. Moses learns his true identity, right? Later on, as an Israelite, and after killing an Egyptian, he flees to the land of Midian, where in time he encounters Yahweh. That was his name. Yahweh. 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 So now in the form of a bright burning bush. See this? Because here it is, at night, Yah came as a bright burning light. Okay. During the day, a cloud of smoke. Okay. So keep that in mind. Now, when we go to Exodus chapter 3, we can see here, let's go to Exodus chapter 4, verse 1 through 17. I want to read that. So here it is. We're going to go to Exodus chapter 4, 1 through 17. Watch this. Moses answered, but behold, they will not believe me, nor listen to my voice. For they will say, Yahweh has not appeared to you, because you are an Egyptian. Verse 2, Yahweh said to Moses, what is that in your hand? He said, a rod. Moses said, a rod. Verse 3, now you can tell that they're conversating. He said, throw it on the ground. He threw it on the ground and it became a viper snake. And Moses ran away from it, right? Never heard that before, did you? Yahweh said to Moses, stretch out your hand and take it by the tail. He stretched out his hand, took hold of it. It became a rod in his hand. See this? He showed him how to capture the snake, at the same time showing him the power of his name. Verse 5. This is so that they may believe that Yahweh, not God, not Jesus, not Lord, Yahweh, the YAHUAH of their ancestors, the Yahweh of Abraham, the Yahweh of Isaac, and the Yahweh of Jacob, who is Israel, and soon will be, has appeared to you. Verse 6, Yahweh said furthermore to him, now put your hand inside your cloak, like this. He put his hand inside his cloak, and when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous or white as snow, right? Verse 7, he said, put your hand inside your cloak again. He put his hand inside the cloak again, and when he took it out of the cloak, behold, it turned again to his own flesh color, right? So now we're realizing brown skinned of Shem, right? So now in verse 8, it will happen if they will not believe you or listen to the voice of the first sign, then they will believe the voice of the other sign by the rod throwing it down. It will happen if they will not believe even those two signs. Listen to your voice. Listen to the conscience voice, right? That you shall take of the water of the river and pour it on the dry land. The water which you take out of the river will become blood on the dry land. See, they never told you about this in the movie. Moses did this. He was in practice mode. He knew what he can do before he actually showed himself to Pharaoh because of the name of Yahweh. Now Moses continued. Verse 10, chapter 4, Exodus. Moses said to Yahweh, I am not elaborate, neither, here it is, or well spoken before now, nor since you have spoken to your servant. For I am slow of speech and a slow tongue. Yahweh said to him in verse 11, who made man's mouth? He asked. Who made man's mouth? Tell me, who makes one mute or deaf or seen right or blind? Isn't it I, Yahweh, or Yahweh? Verse 12. Now therefore go, and I will be with your mouth. You see that? Yahweh says, here it is, I'm in your mouth. Because I am Yahweh. I have the power to manifest what I need out of you, right? So now as we are clearly seeing this in Exodus chapter 4, verse 11, it's clearer now to what was happening and what was being said than other edifications of the movie or what other evangelists have told you or read to you in one of their makeshift Bibles, right? So here it is. You're getting the full prophecy of the backstory, but understanding why Yahweh's name is so powerful and was even used before Moses, right? But when the time of Moses came, Moses was being introduced to the name Yahweh and also the power, right? Because you're seeing that right here. He says, tell them, isn't it I, Yahweh? Verse 12, now therefore go, and I will be with your mouth, and I will teach you what you shall speak. You see that? Highlight this, brothers and sisters. If you are not, then you're going to be left behind, because you need to be taking these notes in order so you will know exactly how righteous you are becoming or how unrighteous you are falling away from. Now in verse 13, Moses said, oh, Yahweh. You see that? Just like when somebody said, now, what's my name? And then you turn around and say, oh, your name is woo woo. And you're like, okay, you got it. So this was a conversation with Yahweh and Moses face to face. Okay? Mano to mano. So here it is. Moses said, oh, yeah, Yahweh, please send someone else. You see that? So now here it is. Verse 14. Yahweh's anger, here it is, burned against Moses for that. Here it is. He didn't like that. And he says, what about Aaron? This is Moses, your brother. You see that? What about Aaron, your brother? Here it is, the Levite. He said, so now Yahweh is basically trying to tell Moses, so you're saying you're less Levite, less Israelite, less chosen than I have chosen you? So here it is. Now you're here it is asking me to use your brother instead of you, like I am not right in my hand picking. So now he says here, what about Aaron, your brother, the Levite? So he's making Moses jealous. I know that he can speak well. See this? So now there's an inflict for inflict, right? So he says, also, behold, he is coming out. Here it is, to meet you. You see that? When he sees you, he will be glad in his heart. Verse 15, you shall speak to him, put the words in his mouth. See that? Aaron didn't have anything going with Yahweh. Only Moses. Because here it is, he knew he had a brother, but they had to get rid of Moses when he was a child. Right? So now you understand why it was said that way, that when we look at verse 14, that he says, I know that he can speak well, at the inflict back on Moses. He says, also, behold, he is coming out to meet you. You see this? That means Aaron was on an assignment while living in Egypt, and Moses was returning to Egypt, right? So he is coming out to meet you. When he sees you, he will be glad in his heart. That means, here it is, he will be glad to realize that this Moses is an Israelite, and later find out that this Moses is his returning brother. Okay? Movies never show you that. But now we're focusing on why we're talking about Yahweh. Because here it is, the power is in the name. Salvation is in the name. Deliverance is in the name, right? So here it is. We know the Spirit is in that name. So now realize he says, this is a conversation. Verse 15, you shall speak to him and put the words in his mouth. I will be with your mouth, though, and with his mouth also. And I will teach you both what you shall do. You see that? So not only did this become related to Aaron, Yahweh have saved me. I have lived in the land of Midian. I am returning with Yahweh to free y'all from this curse of slavery. So now here it is. He's telling Aaron all that it is, and now make himself known to his own brother to let him know, I am the one that was in the basket. I am the one that was pushed away in blessing and became the light to come back with Yahweh to therefore free the people. But here it is. There was a whole lot to explain to Aaron. But here it is. The main things he needed to let him know is that Yahweh is with me right now. So now he says in verse, here it is, 16, it will happen that he will be to you a mouth, and you will be to him as Yahweh. Now this is in verse 16. Yahweh is telling Moses, understand that here it is, I would teach both of you, but understand he will be your spokesman. You see that? Your representative. I will use him as your representative. So therefore, when you go before these men, he will be the one that will speak by your authority that I give you to give to him. Me, Yahweh. So in verse 16, it clearly says he will be your spokesman to the people. It will happen that he will be your mouth. He will be to you a mouth, and you will be to him, it is Moses, as Yahweh. You will be the head. So he says, I will put you ahead of Aaron, right? And here it is. You are to teach him everything I tell you to teach him. So now we are seeing that, brothers and sisters. Now the rest of the book of Exodus details the 10 plagues which Yahweh sends on Egypt, right? And how Moses leads the Hebrew people to freedom. Yahweh in Canaanite age of time, right? The biblical narrative, however, is not as straightforward as we are seeing, and it may seem as it is also includes reference to the Canaanite Yahweh Elohim, who we are talking about, my father, Yahweh. So here it is, who is YAHUAH. Now Elohim, whose name is directly referenced in Israel, he who preserves with YAHUAH Elohim. So YAHUAH, as you spell it, will be spelled, brothers and sisters, YAHUAH. Okay, YAHUAH. YAHUAH. Okay, Elohim. Yah is the chief, here it is, of the Canaanites. And the Elohim who, according to the Bible, that's right, gave Yahweh authority over the Israelites, who gave himself authority over the Israelites, or gave his son authority over the Israelites. So write that down. As his earth self-being, or his inheritance. When the Most High Elohim gave to the nations their inheritance, understand this now, when he separated the sons of men, as we understand in Numbers 1 and 18, he fixed the bounds of the people according to the numbers of the sons of Yah. For Yahweh's portion is his people, right? Because we know Jacob became Israel, who has been allotted the inheritance. Because we read that in Deuteronomy chapter 32. Watch this. 32, again, of Deuteronomy, verse 8 and 9, right? When the Most High gave to the nations their inheritance when he separated the children of the Israelite men. Here we go. He separated the children. There you go. Read that again slow. He separated the children of the Israelite men. Stop there. Now you realize why he had Moses practicing before he showed up. Because here it is. Those who had light skin were basically doing all the grumbling. Okay. And these were the one without color or had spots all over. Okay. And they were called, here it is, our what they call them brothers, when their hair follicles is not, they call it albino. Sorry, got caught up a little there in the spirit. They call them albino. So here it is. Light-skinned men were being separated from the darker and brown-skinned men, right? So now here it is. We are reading that right here clear in verse 8. When the Most High gave to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the children of men of Israelites, he set the bounds of the peoples, right? According to the numbers of the children of Israel, right? Verse 9, for Yahweh portion, here we go, is his people. Jacob is the lot of his inheritance, which is the Israelites, right? Those who are returning. Now understand now here, the Canaanites, like all ancient civilization, worship many wrong gods, deities. But the chief among them was the heavenly most high Elohim. Now this is logic over precept. In this passage from Deuteronomy, Elohim gave each of the priests authority over the segments of the people of the earth. That's right. Yahweh is assigned to the Israelites, right? Yahweh, not Yahuwah. Yahweh was assigned to the Israelites, who in time will again and have made himself their supreme, here it is, and only Elohim. But it is clear, here it is, that the Israelites, or it is clear he existed way beforehand as the above all Elohim, for the people to follow only him, Yahweh as Yahuwah. So now we're seeing how deep it go, how deep your love go, because how deep your love go is basically allowing you to be revealed the truth that it dates way back to the time of Enosh, and at the time, as we have started earlier in this broadcast, that here it is that it is going as far as Cain and Abel. So now, as we have pointed out here at Intelligent Voices Israelites, we're allowing you to benefit the full truth of backstories that no one has ever told you or explained. Because here it is, now is the time for those who are to be prepped for the kingdom that is already at hand. So you can truly identify those who are truly sent to you to give you the truth. If you're freely in your heart wanting to be converted, or here it is, transform out of your old self into your new self, brother or sister. Now, according to me, which therefore through the research of the Spirit, which have given me the revelation, here it is, I have wrote these logics. An essential link between Yahweh, an essential link now, between Yahweh and copper is suggested. Now, we have heard many of our brothers talk about copper being burned, even brothers and sisters. Sisters have also read, seeing it in the good times when little Michael said, well, in the book, he got red eyes. In the book, he got woolly hair. In the book, his feet It's like they've been burned in a furnace, right? And here it is like brass or copper, right? And now in the book of Zechariah, where the dwelling of the Elohim of Israel is symbolized. Now we're going to get to the two mountains of copper, because we got to go to Zechariah to look at this, because here it is. This is exploding you into the truth of his real name is Yahweh. So here it is. No one can therefore deter you from that, because here it is. It's cool to have some righteous hearted nicknames for the Father, but at the same time, you are to realize what is his true accepted pleasing name or names, which is YAHUAH, Yahweh, which is one name. So now here it is. It is clear that what we have been showing all over since this broadcast have started, and for all of you who are not in incognito, we're giving you thanks and praise as well, because it shows that you're fighting for your life and you understand this truth. And here it is. It's starting to make sense and add up. But here it is. This is all praise to my Father, YAHUAH, Yahweh. But now understand, here in Zechariah chapter 6, we're going to be reading verses 1, everyone, through 6, because here it is. It's going to give us great prophecy to understand something. As it is clear, as we've seen, that the Pharaoh said that here it is, she's naming Moses because she drew him out of the water, right? Out of the Nile River. So now understand, that's some beautiful water, man. So here it is. Now we're realizing that this is prophecy, brothers and sisters, that here it is. This ain't no game. This is not something that you should take lightly. Because here it is, if you do not know my Father's name or what is pleasing or what to use, you are very much in trouble. And that means here it is, one can be set up to be deceived and follow after chasing winds that are basically no more than wolves in sheep clothing. So here it is, here at IVI, your brother Yisrael Yashambayah is sent here to, here it is, bear witness to the truth, which is now being taught to not only you, but to me as well. So here it is. It is being received today, this hour, this minute, right? So now in Deuteronomy, no. I wanted to go to Zechariah, not Deuteronomy. Zechariah chapter 6. Zechariah chapter 6, 1 through 6 clearly says, now watch this. This is about the two mountains of copper now. And here it is, and allowing you to see why brown has always been a choice of Yahweh. And here it is, and why he have allowed Moses to go through those practice episodes to turn white, and then therefore to show him how to make the lakes or rivers, here it is, which was in a cup, poured it on the ground and became red. So now understand that this was before he actually got back to Egypt and ran into Aaron, right? So now reading Zechariah chapter 6, 1 through 6 clears up a lot for that understanding. Again, I lift up my eyes, saw, and behold, 4 chariots coming out from between 2 mountains, right? The mountains were mountains of bronze. Last time I checked, bronze is brown, right? So now he says, I seen 2 chariots, or what he says, mountains were mountains of bronze. Mountains was mountains of bronze. Verse 2, in the first chariot were red horses, in the second chariot, black horses. Now, and in the third, white horses, and in the fourth chariot, dappled, or here it is, pale horses, all of them powerful though. Then I asked Yahweh, the angel, here it is, or Yahweh, who talked with me. You see this? So he's telling us he talked with me. This is Zechariah, right? What are these? Yahweh or Yah. And then it says here clearly, verse 5, The angel answered him, these are the four winds of the sky, which go out from standing before the Almighty Yahweh of the whole world. They got the earth. See how they try to bring my father low? So here it is. Verse 6, the one with the black horses goes out towards the north. So the black one towards the north. See that? Because here it is. What was in the north was all those who were set apart men who were basically without no melon and had blemishes on them, right? So they were in the north. And now here it is. They are albino brothers and sisters, right? Or now today become coconut brothers. That means they have white lineage dads, earth parents, and here it is, they have brown skin, because we have proven two white people cannot make a brown child. You need a dark-skinned person and a white or light-skinned person in order to make an albino child or a brown child, okay? It would just not happen with two white people. So keep that in mind. We have taught a video on that, so I advise anyone who's new to our channel, go check our channel videos out. I'll advise you to go through them, because here it is. This is going to help you more than you just going to the video of your liking. So understand this. This is not playing around with you. This is breaking it down why the name Yahweh is the actual name. So now in verse 6, the one with the black horses, see, it's horses. Not just one horse. Now in Revelation, you see 4 horses, but these are horses sent in the direction of the north. See that? Because it's got an S. So it's talking about multiple horses, right? So the one with the black horses, that angel, goes out towards the north country. The white went out after them. See that? The white horse went after the black horses. See that? So destruction and then salvation, right? Then here it is. And the white went out after them, and the pale ones went out towards the south. It doesn't say that it went behind the white ones towards the north. It ran towards the south. So now here it is. The pale horse, which is sickness, heartache, and pain. That's because disaster is went in down the south. Death has went towards the north, famine. So now we're seeing that this is the clock of prophecy, right? You see that today happening right now in prophecy, right? Because if you haven't understood prophecy, you now understand that it is truth that Yahweh is always been controlling everything. Not man or the dragon or those that impose against the truth. So realize, brothers and sisters, Zechariah, Ezekiel describes a divine being, a divine man, right? And he says, whose appearance shine like copper. Now, we just seen that Zechariah just said about the horses and the mountains were copper. Now we're also seeing here in Ezekiel chapter 40. Let's go. Ezekiel, watch this. Ezekiel chapter 40, verse 3. So when you get there, brothers and sisters, it's in this Bible that you hold, in your phone or in your hand as a physical text. We're telling you the truth. Yahweh is before you. And here it is. He uses anybody that he wants to. But here it is. It's mostly and only those who are righteous in heart can be used. Because he's telling you the color of those who he used, right? In 40, verse 3 of Ezekiel, he brought me there. Behold, there was a man whose appearance was like the appearance of bronze. And here it is, within his hand, a staff. And here it is, it says flex. But here it is, a staff and measuring reed. And he stood in the gate. But here it is, he said, the appearance was like the appearance of bronze. That is the focus word right there, brothers and sisters. There's no denying that Yahweh is telling you that the name is the power and the name is salvation. And here it is, the name is deliverance. And the name is in brown, here it is, decreed as representatives of the righteous spirit of Yeshua, right? And in another part of this book, Yahweh is eventually explicitly mentioned as being a smiter, okay? And we can see that in Ezekiel 22, because here it is, Jesus is this nice person, but the Yahweh that we serve is a one of fairness and just judgment, right? So now when we get to Ezekiel, brothers and sisters, watch this. And here it is in Ezekiel 22, verse 20. I got my note. And this is, here it is, precept. He says, as they gather silver, bronze, there go bronze in there, iron, lead, and tin into the middle of the furnace. Furnace, key word, to blow the fire on it, to melt it. So smelt is melt. So here it is. This is like a melting pot, right? He says, so I will gather you in my anger. You see that? In my wrath. He didn't say in my love. He says, I will gather you in my love. It got anger. And in my, here there's wrath. That's my judgment. So here it is. We're seeing, and I will lay you there and melt you, right? Then he says, I want to make all things new, right? So now here it is. We get the concept now to understand why make all things new. They must be melted down, remade, that what is of pure gold, right? So now, brothers and sisters, you got to ask yourself, is you building up pure gold in yourself by using the name Yahweh? Because if not, everything that's melted in you will be thrown out. And in another part, here it is, as we see in Isaiah 54. Let's go. Isaiah 54, verse 16. Precept it. Watch this, brother. Watch this, sister. Because here it is. It's going to allow you to understand you need a lot of cleaning up. But here it is with this educational wisdom that comes by my Father, YAHUAH, Yahweh. You will be able to do just that. Now here is Isaiah 54, and we're going to be looking at verse 16. That was a fly or something. Behold, I have created the blacksmith. See that? Who fans the coals into flames and forge a weapon for his work, right? I have created the destroyer to destroy. Didn't we just read that? My anger, okay? And then my love or my wrath, judgment. I must melt all of that to make sure I'm getting nothing but the purest of pure. The straight brown copper that is being melted, being renewed. And that means those who also have no skin melanin can also be melted and renewed in the name of Yahweh. That's right, brother. That's right, sister. In the name of Yahweh. Yahweh. So now we are seeing clearly in this Isaiah that my Father Yahweh created, or here it is, gave the intelligence for man to be able to create fire. Okay? And here it is, many that said, here it is, that was created by Halil the devil. That's crazy. Many people give too much power to demonic forces, and here it is, they don't even have a clue of where it is coming truly from, just to allow you to see the goodness of Yahweh. But understand, Yahweh, as we see, is explicitly mentioned as the creator of both the copper worker and his work, which is spiritual. Such as involvements of Yahweh is never mentioned elsewhere for other crafts or human activity. Teacher, here it is, your brother, Yahweh Yashamba Yisrael Yashamba. Further notice the Psalm, Shalach, what similarities between Yahweh and other gods. I further point out that the name of the God of Edomites, there you go, these are my side notes, is and was Yahweh. That's right. Edomites served my father Yahweh. And I note how the Edomites, that's right, a people closely associated, right, with, here it is, melting things, okay, were primary workers and administrators of the copper mines at Timnah. That's right. They were coppersmiths, right? And now you see that my father said he created these Israelites for that purpose. And further, that the Edom is neither mentioned in the Bible as challenging in the name of a foreign god. It is suggesting at that time that the two nations of people worship the same deity, right? Or here it is, my father, Yahweh, YAHUAH. Now note, everyone, please, 1 second. Yahweh, now note Yahweh as the actual name. That's what all of us and everyone should be doing. Accepting Yahweh as the actual name of the supreme being. But understand, this seems to have remained in use into the Babylonian exile in the 6th century. Yeah, that's right. Your brother Yisrael Yashamba is about to allow you to see the crossover as we have went to the beginning, as we seen the name was being used by all these other nations. And now we're getting closer and closer now to the 6th century BCE, which means before Common Era. And allowing you to see how it got swapped out later by the Romans and the Catholics. And then Christianity. Although theory has not been refuted of any other names, particularly compelling his argument from biblical passages, right? And the archaeological evidence that I just proved, remember Schaefer Giovanni, cited from the ruins of the mines of Timnah. Now, understand God or Jesus or other wrongful names, which were used to be supreme almighties, referring to Yahuwah, Yeshua, Yahweh, Elohim. Yahweh was not transformed from one among many to the supreme Elohim by the Israelites in the Iron Age. Okay? It wasn't transforming. People weren't coming up with different names. They stayed to the right name. And here it is. That is what benefited. This is what called them to be righteous. And this is what called us to have Abraham, right? Now in 930 BCE to 1200, when the iron replaced bronze, okay, I'm giving y'all some history, the copper melters were craftsmen. And here it is, was seen as a kind of transformation magic. And here it is, lost their unique statues. Because here it is, they stopped, therefore, worshiping Yahweh, who gave them the blessing, to now stand being selfishly praised or too proud for in heart. Because everybody always came to them for everything that they needed, even for their animals harnesses was also made by these men, right? So now in this new age, the Israelites in Canaan sought to here it is, distinct or distant themselves from their neighbors in order to consolidate political and military strength, and so to elevate Yahweh above all. Now here it is. This was a battle. Remember this Bronze Age. Now it was a fight. It was a battle. It was blood. It was war, right? And here it is. Now you're understanding this war was fought because those who were trying to change the ancient ways of the law of Yahweh. So now you can see more of that in the book of Maccabees if you read that. Now, as the supreme being, they try to remove, and here it is, and claimed him, here it is, later on as their own. The association with imagery of fire, smoke, and smiting worked as well in describing a Yah of storms and a Yah of war, making so Yahweh character to be transformations to one of conquest, right? So understand that was wrong, because that was putting Father's name in vain. And today we see that happening today with brothers and sisters of this generation. Perhaps the most noticeable characteristics of Yahweh in Israel, earlier poetry and literature and the military and their so-called Song of the Sea. So many of you might have to Google that and look up the Song of the Sea, which is basically, you can look it up now directly in Exodus chapter 15. Now, when we go to Exodus chapter 15, look at verse 1 through 18, brothers and sisters, because this is the Israelite praise to Yahuwah, okay? And this was the Song of the Sea. So when you hear the so-called Song of the Sea, it's referring to Israel's praise to Yahuwah or to Yahweh. And as it reads here in chapter Exodus 15, 1 through 18, then Moses and the children of Israelites sung this song to Yahweh and said, I will sing to Yahweh, for he has triumphed gloriously. He has thrown the horse and his rider into the sea. That was the Egyptians, okay? Yah is my strength and song. He has become my salvation. That means that's in the name. This is my Yahuwah, and I will praise him, my Father Yahweh. I will glorify him. Verse 3, Yahweh is a spirit divine for war. Yahweh is his name. He has cast Pharaoh's chariot and his army into the sea. His chosen captains are sunk in the Red Sea. The deep covers them. They went down into the deep like a stone. Your right hand, Yahweh, is glorious in power. Your right hand, Yahweh, dashes the enemy in pieces. In the greatness of your excellency, you overthrow those who raise up against you. You send out your wrath of judgment. It consumes them as stubble. With the blast of your nostrils, the waters were piled up. The floods stood upward as a heap. The deeps were congealed into the heart of the sea in the middle, right? The enemy said, here it is, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will divide the plunder, I will divide the plunder. My desire will be satisfied on them. I will draw my sword, my hand will destroy them. You blew with your wind, the sea covered them, right? They sank like lead in the mighty water. Who is like you, Yahweh, among other gods? Who is like you in glorious, in set apartness, in righteousness, in praise, doing wonderful? You stretch out your right hand, the earth is swallowed up. You in your loving kindness have led the people that you have redeemed. You see that? So we're talking about a special type of people now, right? And as we're talking about it today, you have guided them in your strength to your set apart habitation. The people have heard, they tremble. Pain and shock have taken hold of the inhabitants of the Philistine. So here it is. That's the Philistines, right? Then the chief of Edom were dismayed. Trembling takes hold of the mighty men of Moab. So now Yah is punishing all of the nations that he first went to in Canaan, right? So now he says all the inhabitants of Canaan have melted away. So that means their ancestors are all melted away. But the ways of their ancestors still is alive today, right? So now in verse 17, you will bring them in and plant them in the mountain. Remember the mountain of copper? So that means this is a set apart mountain from any other mountains, right? So realize you will bring them in and plant them in the mountain of your inheritance. Who and what is Yahweh's inheritance? You learned that today, brother. You just learned that today, sister. What and who is the Yahweh's inheritance? His people. His people. His people, Israelites, right? So now we are understanding that you will bring them in and plant them in the mountain of your inheritance. The place, Yahweh, which you have made for yourself, dwells in. So now dwell in means spiritually. Spiritually dwelling in those Israelites who are now redeemed because they've been melted and reborn, just like here it is. I get caught up in this spirit here, you guys. Shalat. But now here it is, you're getting caught up in the spirit of Yahweh, just like Nicodemus being born again. That's what I meant to say. So now here it is, you've been melted to be reborn again. And now, brother, and now, sister, you're seeing why Jesus, Lord and God, is not the same as Yahweh, right? So now we're breaking this down clear as possible. The C of the song is basically in Exodus. And now here in verse 17, he clearly telling us that here it is, which your hands have established, verse 18, Yahweh will reign forever and ever. Now the song of Deborah, you must also take a look at, brothers and sisters. The song of Deborah. Now understand there was 13 tribes. Okay, there was a female tribe, but wasn't a tribe, but she was born and was considered a tribe. But then they took that back because that was them making that up. And Yah says, no, there's going to be 12 tribes only. Okay, it will only add up to 12 tribes, even though you might lose one or two as you go through the generations. But it will always remain as 12 tribes of Israel, right? So now in Judges, go to Judges. And matter of fact, I won't take up all that time, but go to Judges chapter 5. And when you go to Judges chapter 5, which we have been there, you'll see the song of Deborah of Barak. So now here it is. Read that, brothers and sisters. And here it is. It will allow you to see that this was the typical praise of Yahweh, the divine warrior, right? Who could be counted on to intervene on the behalf of his followers. It may have been primarily in connection, right, with Israelites' wars that Yahweh gained status. Here it is. That's why till you read Maccabees, gained status as the Almighty Elohim Yah. During times of peace, brothers and sisters, the tribe will have depended heavily on Yahweh in his various local, here it is, forms to ensure fertility. But when they came together to wage war against their common enemies, they will have turned, here it is, to Yahweh, the divine warrior who could provide, that's right, victory. Yahweh as warrior is evidenced throughout the Hebrew scriptures, right? Turn that down. Yahweh as warrior is evidenced throughout the Hebrew scriptures, which became the Christian Old Testimony, here it is, or Testament, and warrior imagery is also apparent in passages in the New Testament, which draw on the earlier works, here it is, of these ones that therefore lost their way, these ancestors. So now when we look at Ephesians, go into now the New Testament, it will make a lot more sense of why Yahweh is the focus point, okay? To keep your actions on that, because here it is. This is going to allow you to benefit the fruit of life. And here it is, allow you to see why many haven't taught this, because here it is, it was saved for you for a reason. Now here in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 11, highlight it if you have to. He says, put on the whole armor of Yahweh. You must put on, brother and sister, the whole armor of Yahweh, so that you may be able to stand, I say, against the evil of the devil. Because here it is, it says it in the book. You must. If you haven't turned to Ephesians 6:11, please turn so you can see that for yourself. Jesus don't come with this information. Only Yahweh come with this information. Allah don't even come with this information. Buddha and all other deities. Only Yahweh. And you're seeing the proof here. Let's go to Philippians. Philippians chapter 2, verse 25. Verse 25. What do it say here? Clearly. But I counted it necessary. I counted it necessary, it says. Key word, necessary. To send to you. You see that? Epaphrodis, my brother, fellow worker, fellow soldier, and your apostle and servant of my need. You see this, Paul? And here it is. It is allowing you to see, but I counted it necessary. See that? To send to you, Epaphrodis, my brother. So now here it is. This is Paul. Now let's look at 2 Timothy. Because here it is. Paul was full of the consciousness and spiritualness of who? Yahweh. So whatever Paul was doing, it wasn't Paul doing it all, but Paul bearing witness to the doing that's doing in him, sin in him, right? Epaphrodis. So now here it is. You are getting now the understanding that this is why many must look to see. 2 Timothy. Watch this. 2 Timothy chapter 3 and 4, everybody. And here when we get here to 2 Timothy chapter 3 and 4, you're going to see what a good Israelite is and what it looks like. And here it is, how it operates, right? You, therefore, must endure. Here it is. Hardship. Didn't it say that? Now, Jesus said love, right? That's how they teach it. Where's the hardship that the Bible, Hebrew Bible scripture said? Pastor, evangelist, okay? So now when we get and see this, 2 Timothy chapter 2, 3 and 4, you therefore must endure hardship. How is people going to be enduring hardship when the third war happens? Without Yahweh. You tell me that. Watch what it says. As a good Israelite soldier of Yahweh Yahshua, he says you must endure. You're going to see and go through many things, brothers and sisters. You're going to feel many things in the last as we are upon these days. Realize, are you truly working to get yourself right? Or is you truly working to get yourself to not endure any of these hardships, these struggles of life that is coming from these horses that have been leased on the earth? You have to be dumb, blind, and stupid not to see what's going on. Verse 4, no soldier, no Israelite soldier on duty, here it is, entangles, here it is, or step aside himself in the affair of life, that he may please himself or him who enrolled him as a soldier. See that? Most of these people who are working for the government and military go to war for a man. But those of us who go to war for the spiritual life of Yeshua go to war for eternal life, to get rid of evil, to dismantle those who are wicked by the name of Yahweh. That's right. Go to 2 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians chapter 9. We're going to be reading verse 7. Understand what I'm saying here. Because here it is. It is not me saying anything but bearing witness to what the saying is saying, which is spiritually Yahweh. Here in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 7, what Israelite soldier ever serves at his own expense? Okay. What Israelite soldier, Israelite soldier ever serves at his own expense? Who plants a vineyard and doesn't eat of its fruit, right? But who feeds a flock and doesn't drink from the flock's milk? See that? You're never reaping your full reward, brothers and sisters. You're allowing yourself to be denounced each day. You keep Jesus, Lord and God, Allah, and all these other deities. It's clear in this episode today of Yahweh that we're talking so heavily about my Father's name that many have been lost and led astray, thinking all these other deities. By now, you know they do nothing. So quit lying and tricking and deceiving yourselves. But the Bible speaks to that too. My Father will allow you to remain deceived until you are destroyed. So understand, here it is, in this verse, and among others, by the time these works were written, everyone, the worship of Yahweh had undergone a dynamic, here it is, or traumatic transformation from what it had been in the early days of the Israelites in Canaan. And now here it is, early and later religions, beliefs, and practice have now sprung up. Initially, the people of Canaan, including the Israelites, practiced a form of ancestor worship in which the viner, or here it is, they venerated the viner, Yahweh of their father, Yahusha, or Yahusha, which is spelled Yahusha, brother. The house of Judah, Yahusha, the house of Judah, in addition to paying homage to their earthly ancestors in an effort to establish individual, tribal, and family connections. In time, this practice, here we go, involved, that's right, into worship of deities such as praise of Ashery. So look up these words, brothers and sisters, in your dictionary. If you think here at IVI, we're lying to you, if you just arrived here. If you think anything that we're saying without you actually doing your research, how could you understand what is truth and what is proof? But here today, for those we know, we show nothing but truth and proof. They worship Asheries, Baal, demons, and false gods, among others, right? As the Israelites developed their community in Canaan. This is why Canaan became so wicked. They sought for distance themselves. Here it is. They sought to distance themselves, Salah, from their neighbors. Here it is. And here it is, to elevate Yahweh above the traditional Canaanite supreme Elohim. They did not, however, embrace, here it is, the righteousness of their ancestors at this time. The Israelites remain a people through the time of the judges, which predates the rise of the monarch, and throughout the time of the kingdom of Israel. In 1931, my brothers and sisters, BCE, following the death of Solomon, the kingdom split into two. That's why you keep hearing me saying south and north, okay? For you or those who are new to the Israelite community and just picking up and waking up, then therefore, here it is. You might want to go and look at some of the previous videos and understand that here it is. There was two kingdoms that were split or set apart. So now here it is. This is around the time of the death of Solomon. And here it is, a new political entity. That's right. The kingdom of Judah was now risen up with a capital. Here it is at Jerusalem, and it is the capital of Jerusalem. So Judah is the capital of Jerusalem. But they say here it is, Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, which Israel now is Judah. So now realize, emerged in the south, the kingdom of Israel and Judah predominantly, here it is, warred or here to allied with each other until 722. So I have to take these notes so you guys can match it with the precepts of the Bible to realize these time frames and to realize at what time. Now, until 722 BCE, now when the Assyrians destroyed Israel, and in keeping with their military policies, this is what they were fighting for. So when you look at the book of Maccabees and go deeper, brother, in the Apocrypha, you'll basically start seeing more enlightenment of basically of this truth, and ask Yahweh to continue on from what you're learning today here at IVI. Now realize, now in keeping with their unusual military politics, or here there's policies, they deported the inhabitants and replaced them with others. That's right. So you might have heard many of brothers and sisters around the two have explained to you that our brothers and sisters, our ancestors, were replaced in Israel. That is true. We even also got documentation of basically showing you one of the Inca chiefs who basically was still there while they were taken from Guinea. And here it is, more people were coming into the land. And he clearly said Israel left black and came back white. And I'm going to try to pull that up for y'all so to have that out of my archives. So, but back to this, to Yahweh. Now, the inhabitants were replaced. Now, we know 1948, 46, with others from their empire. Judah was able to withstand, here it is, the Assyrian military. And here it is, but only by paying tribute to the Assyrian gods. Now, we just read how in Canaan, many of the nations, the Moabites, the Canaanites, they all start worshiping these deities, which were made of stone and statues. And we also seen that Yah says, I am the one that here it is spoke the word into existence to create smelters. So here it is, those who melt things, right? And here it is, it was for him to create. And those who therefore worship these men became more prideful, and they lost their way. Now realize the Assyrian Empire fell to the invading force of the Babylonian Medes. And here it is, another in 1612 BCE, before Common Era. And the Babylonians claimed, here it is, the reign of Canaan, or the Canaanites, in 595 or 598 BCE. So now they invaded Judah and sacked Jerusalem, destroying the Temple of Solomon and taking the leading citizens, which was of Judah, and here it is, some of the mixed tribes of that nation, citizens back to Babylon. Now we understand how we get Abraham coming out of Babylon. This is the time in Hebrew history known as the Babylonian captivity. Now you might have heard many of our brothers and sisters mention the Babylonian captivity. And here it is, they're speaking of a time before the time of the slave trade, Atlantic. Okay, they're showing you in 538 to 530 to 598 BCE. Then we know that Babylon was captured by Cyrus the Great in 530 BC, and of the Persians, right? They clashed together. You might have heard me say that multiple times, maybe in a lyric or something. The Persian Empire clashed, and here it is. America clashed against the Persian Empire, and Israel clashes against them, So here it is. Who allowed the Hebrew leaders to return to their homeland in 538 BCE. And now, as we know, as with all ancient religion, the faith of the people were based on the understanding in which they would, here it is, honor and serve their deities. So this is that thought pattern of Babel. And now here it is, you're seeing today people basically in their own ways are saying they're serving whoever they want to serve. And many people are not taking or beholding that they need to basically choose Yahweh now, because here it is, this is a turning of an event that is happening. Now realize, in which they will honor and serve other deities, as I have wrote. In return, they will receive protection and guidance, which they haven't. These people serve all these other deities and they don't get anything. And here it is, they have to make up their own holidays just to make themselves feel good, right? So how sick is that, right? When you have make up things to make you feel good because you are in so much denial of the truth, right? So now when the temple was destroyed and the kingdoms was taken down, the clergies had to find some reason for the tragedy and concluded it was because they had not paid enough attention to Yahweh and had angered him, though through this acknowledgement, Salah, and worship of other gods. During the Second Temple period, now here we go. And this is around, as we see, 515 BCE to 7 CE, Common Era. Hebrews were revised, or the Hebrewism was revised, the Torah canonized, right? And a new understanding of divineness was established. Christian Church, Latter-day Saints, Mormons, should I say more, which today is known as monotheism or monotheism, right? Look it up. And here it is allowing you to see that now many sects or divisions have sprung up out of this curse. And this belief in a single deity, here it is, which is coming up now under a one world religion, which is later to unveil itself. Now, at this time, it is, we know that scholars have established the older works would eventually became the Hebrew scriptures, which I was talking about earlier. So I'm just going over some notes that I talked about earlier about the scrolls, the Dead Sea, the Nile. So now here it is. It all has been revised to reflect the monotheistic, here it is, belief system among the Israelites far earlier than was actually practiced. The monotheism of the Hebrew scriptures will later be, here it is, appropriate by the Christianity beliefs of Romans, who will continue veneration of Yahweh, eventually known by adding or changing his true name from Yah Elohim to Jehovah, and then simply as God. And Islam would also develop the deity under the name Allah, which means the God, beginning in the 7th century. You see this? So now you got to ask yourself, the Bible was first. So this telling you that everything that's in another book is false, is made up. Man has added to the books to make it say whatever he wanted to say. And that's why that book is called that book. So now when you see this here, 7th century CE, common era, whoever, and now here it is, this is how they say, whoever he is, he knows who I'm talking about. No, he don't. He only knows that you are in vain by not trying to keep his name alive in yourself. So here it is, you will be judged according to that lie of your selfish self. So now we see here it is, Yahweh was the original name and is. And however, he was worshiped, here it is, back then, he basically is still the same today because people are changing it, his name, and changing the way of worship by saying that here it is, they can do whatever they want to do, which is completely wrong and false. So now as I see my last notes, we know that here it is, this monotheistic religion of the world is alive because it is breathing on the flesh of everyone. Because we have to go back to Genesis and realize that the snake, the serpent, was cursed to the ground. And also so was man cursed. Here it is, in his shame. And here it is, wrapped in his sins for breaking the law. And this now return of Yahweh is now for the believer that will believe in him fully and take his word as face value. Because here it is, spiritualness is a part of that value, and divineness and supremeness. So you need to open up your heart, fill your mind with the truth, and drive yourself to, like the video, if you so much can, in the spirit of righteousness. And here to spread this channel to others, friends and family, co-workers as well. Because here it is, it's going to walk you through this education moment to tell you exactly what you need for now, not for what later, by telling you got time. That would be a bald-faced lie. You do not have time, everybody. So take heed to this. And I thought I would share this with me and my Father as I bear witness to you this truth today. In Yeshua's name, I send blessings off to you as well as my whole entire family. We send our thanks and grace under the spirit of Yahweh, and may all man, woman, and child return soon. Shalom, shalom.